I want to ask you if you could talk about the studio that you had at Harvard, which you called $3,200. So the idea was that it's not going to be a project about a particular type, right? Or a particular idea, but it was a project about fitting into a particular budget, right?
Right. So that was the second studio I taught at Harvard. The first one was in 2000, called Otherwiseness, and maybe it makes sense a little bit to explain it because it leads to how we entered social housing. When I was invited to teach, I had no idea what to talk about, but I knew that one of the biggest threats to architecture is arbitrariness. So that in a moment of development of technique where you can do whatever you want, the risk of responding what the first thing that comes to your mind, or that your inner world is so fantastic that the world deserves to look at it, no matter if it makes sense to what you're being asked, made me very nervous. So the title Otherwiseness is because things can always be this way or otherwise, and I was looking for ways to eliminate that arbitrariness, and I thought constraints are a big filter against the superfluous. And in the case of that was emergency housing, and there is not money, not even time to answer what the first thing that comes to your mind. And that in a way I thought was a luxury, because it makes you focus on what is strictly necessary and what is the most irreducible core. That the name Elemental is actually that, more than talking about lack of money, is the need to focus on the most essential, irreducible aspect of a given theme. In this case, social housing, where that is not a choice, you're forced to, but it's always desirable, even if you have a big budget or a lot of means, that you're able to go to that irreducible core. That being said, I met this engineer, and he said, do something with social housing. And that led to accepting the policy as it was. And the main thing about the policy was the budget.
And can I also ask you, I think that will relate to the first question. Was this studio related in any way to what you taught here?
No, when I arrived to Harvard, I said before in this dinner, I had no idea what a subsidy was. So it was a theme that was as new for me as for the students. And I guess that eventually you get that, that we were all on the same side of the problem. It's not that I know something and I'm doing you the favor to explain something that I already know. I, as the students, have no clue what we are actually. That studio started in a way, and in the midterm review, I realized we were completely wrong. We had to take everything, throw it away, and start from scratch. I apologize with the students because
I actually read about it when you were concentrating on the budget for one particular unit.
Yes,
and then you decided
it had to have a different scale,
a different approach.
Yeah, and I didn't know at the time. I know it now, but we were also focusing on how to make this unit as cheap as possible. So we were researching materials like waste, tires, plastic bottles, that kind of thing. I'm going to jump 2 years from that moment when we were running the international competition for scaling up this thing. In the jury there was the Minister of Housing of Chile, and we received many projects, many of them with containers, plastic bottles, garbage, that kind of thing. And he said, I don't think not single one time the Minister of Housing in Chile has been an architect. It's always been a lawyer, engineer, or economist, or whatever. And this was the case. He was an engineer, I think. And he said, "What is this?" I mean, in a private meeting, what the fuck is this? I mean, how can an architect even think that I, as a minister, will give to a poor person that is going to receive a house only once in their lifetime?
Yeah.
The biggest aid that I, as the state, am going to give to that person is through this house in their entire life. I don't think I can even have the face to go to them and say, "Look, this is the house you've been dreaming of. Here, you have a container." I mean, it's not only politically incorrect. It really doesn't understand that a person that is dreaming with the house, the fact that it's
just
not
the fact that the
having
person
money
is poor.
is not that person's
Yeah.
problem. Is the entire society problem, and so it leaves out. No matter how humanitarian or I mean, people cannot live in the garbage. I don't think it's fair. And so again, does it pass the filter of asking, would I live in a container? Would I live in a thing made out of plastic bottles? Sorry, no way. Then why them? They may not have money, but that doesn't make that they deserve that kind of.
They still have dignity, right?
Yeah. So the thing is that more than very sophisticated indicators without the thing is, would I live there? No. So out. So that research was the wrong question. We didn't spend the proper time understanding what was the questions to resolve, which was trying to make the unit as cheap as possible to deal with scarcity. When you realize that you were so completely wrong, is that okay? No money, there's scarcity? Yes, that's a fact. Do I have to lower the standard? No. The thing is, okay, if no money, why don't we face scarcity with incrementality? Okay, I will do now something good, but as much as I can afford now. And then over time, I'll keep on doing what I can't pay for right now, but everything is going to follow a decent standard. And this shift, I guess, led to the question of, okay, not unit, let's think at the scale of the building for the entire community that has many conditions. In any case,
So the idea of half a house came
there.
when you were working on this particular 3200?
Yes.
Okay.
And I still have very clear in my mind, there was the midterm review, these two, I mean, a dinner the night before with an economist that was the presidential candidate now, Andres Velasco. He was a professor at the School of Government, a brilliant economist. And while having dinner, he raised this question. Oh, you're doing social housing, blah, blah, blah. What do you do with the extension of the city? So I was thinking in the unit, and this guy asked me about the city. And of course, if you think the unit wrong, then the consequences at the entire city level are completely wrong. So by trying to minimize the cost of the unit, what you get is this sprawl. It's the same thing with sustainability, trying to make this unit efficient, and because it's with the very sustainable materials, it ends up costing more, so you have to place it where land costs less. Then the amount of energy that you spend traveling to your very efficient unit makes no sense in the overall picture. So it was that question that already made me kind of doubt about the approach we were having for the past, 6 weeks. And then during the review, Hashim Sarkis, who's the Aga Khan professor at Harvard, made again these questions. But what's the cost of a unit? $7,000. And how many families? 100. What about a $700,000 building?
But for example, when you're working on projects, do some names of architects or artists come up?
Yes, I for example, Louis Kahn, I call it this F moments. I was visiting some of his buildings in India. Well, not exactly. We were with the Pritzker Prize jury in India. because not necessarily looking for an Indian architect. The Pritzker Prize operates like you cannot give the prize to an architect that you haven't seen the work. So,
and you're talking about everybody on the jury, right?
Yes.
Has to see.
or at least a significant number of the members of the jury has to know the potential candidate's work. And it's very likely that while going to Europe or to the US, or you visit kind of the last building by this guy, by that guy. But it's not that every day you go to Bangladesh or to Africa. So you better make sure that if there's a name coming from unusual places, you have visited in case that name deserves being considered. And not the reason for not giving the prize is that, yeah, it looks interesting, but you know, I haven't been there, so I don't know. We try to visit places that it's unlikely that you visit on your own.
Okay.
So we were in India and Bangladesh. So you're visiting many things, and one of the good things is that you're not only visiting potential candidates' work. It could be a young architect, but it could also be architecture that was already built, and that is particularly important because you are reminded all the time of what architecture has been. When you look at Kahn's work, when you look at Corbusier's work, I mean, you're reminded that architecture has been able to produce this thing. Do not make the mistake of, just for the sake of novelty of the last thing, not to be able to have something that, looking again back in 40 years from now, won't resist the test of time. So by doing that, there's a moment during these trips that you've seen so many things that you don't know where you're going next. You just go into a car, out of a car, into a car, out of a car. And I went out of a car and was kind of not even knowing where we were in India. And then all of a sudden you look around and it's like, what the fuck is this? It was, and this, there was that time Karen Stein was, and she was here next to me. I saw around, and then all of a sudden I to myself, I didn't realize she was there. It was like, fuck. And she looked at me and said, what happened? Look at this place. What is this? It's the Indian Institute of Management in Ahmedabad by Khan.
Okay.
That building could have been done 2,000 years ago, or in the next 50 years. And then we went to Bangladesh. I mean, that could be a building it's as futuristic as you want it to be, or it could have been done a couple of centuries ago. So I guess that there are moments that you visit this, it happens rarely. It's not that, even at a very high level, it's not that it happens every day. Even a very good architect has some buildings that have this F moments, others are just good buildings. I mean, and so I guess that Kahn is I didn't know his work. I visited the works in Yale, and my reaction was like, well, not bad, but why so much?
Why is it important?
So my thing, and then you arrive to India, and then you're depressed, kind of. I mean, you know you will never get there.